Pulse, I welcome you all to day 2 of our Majalis series commemorating Bibi Fatima Salamullah Alaiha. I will now request Brother Muhammad Kumail Rizvi to start the program with tilawat of Quran, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Jazakallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you inshallah. بادل بنا دے مجھ کو مدینے کا اے خدا میں تربت بطول پہ سایہ تو کر سکوں. I will now invite Brother Jafar Jafri to recite a salam for us, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
اے چاند کربلا کے تو نے تو دیکھے ہوں گے اترے تھے اس زمین پر عرش بری کے تارے اے چاند جلوگر ہے ہاشم کا چاند یہاں پر خیرات روشنی کی لے لیجیو یہاں سے اے چاند اس زمین پر رکھیو ہمیشہ ٹھنڈک سوتے جو ہے یہاں پر زہرا کے ہیں یہ پیارے اے چاند تسلیم و سلسبیلو کوثر کے ہیں یہ مالک مارے گئے جو پیاسے اس نہر کے کنارے اے چاند مارے گئے یہیں پر بے دردیوں ستم سے مسلم کے دونوں بیٹے زینب کے دونوں پیارے اے چاند پامال ہو رہی تھی قاسم کی لاش رن میں عباس اور سرور چنتے تھے ان کے ٹکڑے اے چاند بازو کٹے یہیں پر عباس با وفا کے اذن وغا نہ پایا پانی بلا نہ پائے اے چاند اس سرزمیں پہ گزرا سرور پہ یہ بھی صدمہ سینے پہ کھائی برچی ہم شکل مصطفیٰ نے اے چاند پانی پلانے لائے ایک مہلکہ کو سرور کی غضب حرملا نے تیرے ستم لگا کے اے چاند گردن چدی پہ سر کی بازو چدا پدر کا دونوں طرف طرف کر پیاسے جہاں سے گزرے اے چاند اس بن میں ایک بچی بابا کو ڈھونڈتی تھی بکھرے ہوئے پرے تھے جب سر بری دلاشے اے چاند پھر یہ بھی تو نے دیکھا وہ غم رسیدہ بچی سینے پہ سو رہی تھی بے سر پدر سے لپٹی اے چاند بازو بندے یہیں پر پہلے پہل حرم کے اس سرزمین سے نکلے سجاد سر جھکائے اے چاند شہزادہ جناحی مالک ہے کربلا کے کس کی مجال آئے جب تک نہ وہ بلائیں اے چاند کربلا کے تو نے تو دیکھے ہوں گے اترے تھے اس زمین پر عرش بری کے تارے اے چاند
صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajahum. Jazakallah. May the 14 Masumeen reward both of your efforts, inshallah. Chadar kare jiski saya Rasool par, rakha na saya ummat ne kabre batul par. I will now request Brother Khurshid Abbas to please recite a salam for us. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajahum.
Assalamu alaikum. Bawa Zeblan salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajahum. کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو، شکستہ ہے پہلو اکیلی ہے زہرا، کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو، شکستہ ہے پہلو اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، در فاطمہ کو جلایا ہے تم نے، کیا وعدہ اپنا بھلایا ہے تم نے، در فاطمہ کو جلایا ہے تم نے، کیا وعدہ اپنا بھلایا ہے تم نے، تماچے نہ مارو مسلمانوں جاؤ، علی کو بلاؤ اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، بیاں کس سے جا کر کروں درد اپنا، ہے غیروں کی دنیا نہیں کوئی اپنا، بیاں کس سے جا کر کروں درد اپنا، ہے غیروں کی دنیا نہیں کوئی اپنا، کوئی جا کے بابا سے کہہ دو یہ جا کر کہ لے جاؤ آ کر اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، اے لخت جگر اے حسن ابن حیدر، یہ نانا کے پہلو میں سونے نہ دے گر، اے لخت جگر اے حسن ابن حیدر، یہ نانا کے پہلو میں سونے نہ دے گر، تم آ جانا پہلو میں سو جانا ماں کے بکی میں، یہاں پر اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، شہ کربلا نے کہا رو کے ماں سے، یہ مظلوم بیٹے نے مظلوم ماں سے، شہ کربلا نے کہا رو کے ماں سے، یہ مظلوم بیٹے نے مظلوم ماں سے، अकेला हूँ मैं भी, अकेली है ज़ैनब, अकेले है बाबा, अकेली है ज़हरा, रोने पे पहरा, मसाइब का सहरा, अकेली है ज़हरा। बहुत से बुलंद सलावत। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला।
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa jil farajahum. Jazakallah, brother. May Bibi Fatima salam Allah alayha accept your efforts, inshallah. Moving on, I now request our esteemed Shaykh to commence his speech on the topic, Good, Evil, and Beyond, Surah Fajr. Please recite a loud salawat to welcome our Shaykh. Allahumma salli ala
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I'd like to start by extending my thanks and my gratitude to the organizers of this event and Jazakallah to all the speakers before and the presenters. It's really good to see a hands-on approach from the youths. So God bless you all. And I'd like to ask everybody to recite Surah Fatiha for all the marhumeen, inshallah, and forgive my daughter if you can hear her banging on the door. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. The topic for today is good, evil, and beyond. So the whole series is about really expecting that the best is yet to come. And today we're going to be talking about how there are good people, there are evil people, and there are also those people who are outstanding, those people who stand out from the crowd, those who are beyond. We're going to discuss this in three parts. The first part is to discuss the idea that do we see a constant theme of good and evil interwoven within the media? And is there a reality behind it? The second part will be discussing about how does Islam teach us to view the dichotomy of good, evil, and beyond through Surah Fajr. And the third part will be about the jinns and what role the jinns play in all of this. So firstly, do we see a constant theme of good versus evil, like interwoven throughout the media? No, I think the simplest answer is yes. And I think everybody can see it. If you look at any media form, whether it's that novel that you're reading or a sitcom or a movie or a drama, even a comedy, no narrative can exist except that you will see this theme of good versus evil. There will always be a protagonist and an antagonist. There will always be a struggle that the hero has to undergo in order to become the hero of the tale. Why does this narrative exist? It is, and what I'd like to propose here is that, look, this is a universal principle which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his infinite wisdom, has interwoven into the very fabric of our human existence. We cannot deny or avoid or try to hide away from this reality that good and evil really does exist. The problem lies in the fact that sometimes we forget this. We forget that there is good and there is evil, and we forget that life is nothing but a story, and we are characters within that story, and we have been given the choice by the writer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've been given the choice about which role we will play, meaning that it's up to you if you want to be the hero or not. Okay, and you'll notice that throughout the media, generally speaking, there is always one hero. There's lots of other characters who complement the hero. There's lots of other characters who complement the main character. Whether it's a male character or a female character, you'll notice that there are always friends or who accompany him or her, but that person is, at the end of the day, the hero or the heroine. Why? And why is it that humans are so attracted to this idea of heroism? Why do we need a hero to I don't really want, but think about any movie that you've watched. And I'd like us to contemplate over this. Now, if you go to history, you'll see that there were certain outstanding individuals who really withstood the test of time. And they've ended up in our history books, and a lot of them have influenced the way that we think today. There were lots of common people, but they've just been completely forgotten. We don't even know what their names were. They might have graves somewhere, but even their descendants have forgotten them. You know, it's interesting. If you go back in time, you might remember your parents and your parents' names, and maybe you will even remember your grandparents' names. But before that, who do we actually remember? Who left a legacy on this earth? Those of us who are Sayyids, they can trace back their lineage to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. But other than them, who do we actually know who imprinted and left their footprints on this world? Go back in history, you'll see people like Napoleon and Hitler and, I don't know, Shakespeare and Isaac Newton and all these great names. And, you know, among the Muslims, you have people like Jabir ibn Hayyan, and you have great philosophers and thinkers and people who strove with all their energies and all their efforts to make some sort of change in the world. There was Salahuddin. It might have been a good change, it might have been a bad change, but look, notice that only a few names appear throughout history. All the rest of the people are pretty much forgotten. Even on the good side, you see that there were people like Shaheed Malcolm X, people like Shaheed Qasim Soleimani. They truly shook the world. They made a change. But the rest of people are completely forgotten. So we'd like to dive into the discussion here with this initial premise that, look, firstly, good and evil does exist. And also, there is something which is beyond that. And we have to strive to be that something which is beyond. Now, when it comes to the dichotomy of good versus evil, most people, when it comes to this idea, will think that the world is divided into 50-50. They'll think that half the people are good and half the people are evil. Makes sense, right? But actually, that's not the reality. How does Islam teach us to view the struggle between good and evil? Well, Islam comes and it teaches us that, look, it's about the 1%. Imagine all of human beings today who are alive, 7 billion people on earth, and yet how many of those people actually have an influence? How many of those people do you actually know, other than your friends and family, who are actually having an impact? Islam teaches us that on the side of evil, there are 1% of people, and I'm saying 1%, it could be less. It could, in fact, it probably is a lot less, but we're just using 1% in order for us to understand this. There is 1% of people who are on the side of the taghut, the side of evil, the side of oppression. 1% only. And then on the other side, you have 1% of people, again, probably a lot less this time, who are on the side of wilaya. What is wilaya? Wilaya is basically, in a nutshell, it's the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who should be obeyed on earth. All the policies which are applied on any country should be the policies of Allah, not the policies of the taghut. Okay? And these people, they're on the side of not, I don't want to say it's good because I'm going to come to that now. So Islam teaches us that there is taghut on one side and wilaya on the other. Okay? 98% of people are just in the middle. They are just human beings, just going about their daily lives. Most of the time, they are just thinking about themselves or their family. They don't understand the bigger picture at all. They are sheep people. They've been referred to as sheeple. You know, and what's happening is the taghut and the followers of wilaya are like two very powerful magnets, and each one of them, the positive and the negative, are trying to suck and pull the sheeple, the normal people, the 98% in the middle, in this direction or that direction. من يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى. Remember, the Quran tells us. This is one of those verses that we've been taught from a young age to memorize. It says that, look, one who rejects the taghut and believes in Allah, he's grabbed hold of the most firm handhold. This is really what it's all about. It's about rejecting the taghut and holding on to that rope of Allah. What is that rope of Allah? It is wilaya itself, right? Okay, so let's dive into Surah Fajr now. Surah Fajr is one of those amazing surahs which will really open your eyes into this idea in and of itself. Now, if you go to it, you'll see that it begins by introducing the taghut. And it says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِعَادٍ. It says, have you not seen how your Lord dealt with Ad? And then it says, وَثَمُودَ, and it introduces Thamud, another taghut. And then it introduces Fir'aun, وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ, the Pharaoh who was the owner of stakes. He had spikes. He would stick any people who opposed him. He would basically crucify them on these big stakes, on these big spikes. It was scary to oppose Fir'aun, right? So it introduces these taghut, these tawaghit to begin with, Thamud and Ad and Fir'aun. Right? Why does Allah paint this picture for us? Why does He keep on highlighting certain people in our history, like the Pharaoh, like Fir'aun? Why? Why is this important for us to know? And why does Allah want us to contemplate about this? And if you actually read the Quran, you'll notice that Fir'aun especially is repeated over and over and over again. And his story and his tale and his mentality is told to us. And it's told to us how materialistic he was and how he had power over the people and how he was given lots of strength and he subdued the masses. Over and over and over again, it tells us, and about the other tawaghit as well. You see, people don't recognize that the Quran is alive. It's not just a history book. It is telling us something about the world in which we live today. Those who look at the book as the Quran as just a story to tell children, they've forgotten the realities behind it. Those who read the Quran just hear its pleasant sound, but they don't contemplate over it. They never wake up to the reality that we're living the reality of the Quran. We're surrounded by the Quran. I have to tell you this now because it's just popped into my mind. You get into a lot of amazing discussions with people in the Khamsa. One of the discussions that I got into with a certain person, he was a good brother, and we were talking about the Quran, and we were expressing our excitement about how this book is just, the only word you can think of is magical to describe it. It's just fantastical. He was saying that there was a certain person who he became obsessed with the Quran. And it's the best of obsessions to have. There are so many obsessions that people have. They get addicted to drugs, they get addicted to alcohol, they get addicted to movies or sitcoms or video games or anything else, or to their spouses. Lucky spouses, your spouse is addicted to you. I mean, that's nice too, right? But there's so many things people get addicted to, or the dunya generally. Imagine if your obsession became Allah. Imagine if your addiction became the Quran. Anyway, this person, he dived into the Quran, and he swears and he says that, look, it got to a point where he could only see the Quran, nothing else. I said, what do you mean he could see the Quran and nothing else? He said, look, Muzaffar, when he looked at the walls, he could see verses of the Quran to do with the walls. When he looked at pillars, he could see the pillars were emanating the Quran. It was like this bright light. When he looked at the sky, when he looked at the earth, when he looked at people, all he could see was verses of the Quran. Incredible. Absolutely amazing. I'd like to take you now to the analogy, the metaphor of the Matrix. For those who haven't seen the movie, The Matrix, a very interesting parallel is drawn here, where they show that everybody in the human race is just connected to a computer program, and they're actually all sleeping. But this plug, which is in their heads, is feeding them information. And so they think that they are living their lives, but they're not actually living their lives. They're just living a computer program. Even while they're eating, they think that they're eating because the program is sending them messages, making them think that they're tasting something delicious. But in reality, they're just being injected with food while they're in a state of sleep. The hero of this story, when he wakes up and when he unplugs from the Matrix, he starts to see the realities, and he starts to see for himself that while he's inside the Matrix, everything is just computer programming. Now, the movie gives, if we focus on the movie too much, it's giving it a negative twist. It's making you think that, everything that we're experiencing is just created by robots and they wish to actually just control our lives. But here we're looking at something a little bit different, although it's similar in some regards. We're talking about the existence itself is a beautiful, inspirational, almost unimaginable program which has been written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine if you could hack it. Imagine if you could break the fabric of this reality and break free. The Quran is your key to do that. And this would actually explain why some of the Ghurafat, like Ayatollah Bahjat, there are stories about him being able to do Tayyul Ard, which means that he could teleport. 1 second he's in this place, another second he's in another place. 1 moment he's in Qom, the second moment he's in Najaf. And there have been quite a few stories narrated in that regard. It's quite fascinating. But yeah. And it would actually answer our questions when it comes to the miracles of the prophets and the Ayyam and even the awliya Allah. You'll notice that the Quran even tells us that in the midst of Prophet Sulaiman, you go to the story of Prophet Sulaiman, you'll see that there was an ordinary person among them, not a prophet, not an imam, and yet he was able to bring the throne of the Queen of Sheba in the blinking of an eye. He was able to transport that huge object like that. Okay, how are these things possible? It's because, look, all of this that we are witnessing, the world around us, is just, it's written on certain laws which have been written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you understand Him and you understand His laws, then you can break all of the laws of physics pretty much. And We'll discuss that more, inshallah. But anyway, I've gone off on a huge tangent. That's what happens when I get excited. But anyway, coming back, the Taghut, in this system that we're living in, there are certain people who have become Taghut, oppressors, tyrants, evil, absolutely evil, tyrannical overlords, okay? And the Quran is showing us that, look, this is a reality that you're going to face today. We have to ask ourselves, who is the Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of the world in which we live today? But then the Quran goes on. In Surah Fajr, it starts to talk about insan, about humans. Now, this word insan in the Quran is used negatively quite often. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. I swear by time, Allah tells us, I swear by time, human beings are in complete loss. They're completely lost. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except for those who believe and do good deeds. A similar thing we see occurring here. It's almost like Allah is elaborating on the idea of the insan. In Surah Fajr, he says, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. Allah says, as for the human, when we test him, we give him a bounty, we give him a blessing. He says, my Lord has honored me. He gets boastful. He thinks, I've got something now. Right? And then he says, when we test him in a different way, when we test him differently, فَقَدَّرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. He says, when we test him in a different way and we restrict his rizq, we restrict his sustenance, he says, my Lord has humiliated me. My Lord has, he's abandoned me. This is the general ethos of most human beings on earth. This is the reality. Even when we believe in Allah, even when we claim to be Shi'as, even when we claim to be Muslims, the reality is that when something good happens to us, we suddenly get into a good mood. We're all happy and everything. When something bad happens to us, we think, why are you doing this to me, God? Why are you doing this? Right? We become despairing. This is a trait and a quality of the common masses, and it is looked at in a negative light by the Quran. This is the mentality of the common people. This is the way they think, and this is what we have to come out of. And I want to give you a hadith to elaborate on this a little bit more. A man comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he says, I'm one of your Shi'as. Imam Sadiq says, when something good happens to you, what do you say? He says, I say, Alhamdulillah. He says, what about if something bad happens to you? Nothing. I don't say anything. Well, if somebody has this kind of a mentality, what makes them different to a dog? And I don't mean this in a rude way, but let's just think about it for a moment. If you give a dog a bone, it will, get happy. It will, lick you, or it will loll out its tongue. If you don't give it anything, it will just go away. It will leave you. The loyalty of the dog is only to the extent that you have a bone to give it. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, this is what our reality is. We change with the tides that we are being faced with. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what does he say? When times get tough, when it's a time of adversity, religious people become very few. Now, we're living in times where we are being tested thoroughly, absolutely thoroughly. We're in times of great fitna and times of great confusion. And you'll see right now, dear brothers and sisters, we're seeing it with our own eyes, and you're witnessing it yourselves. And this is something that we know has to happen before the Dhuhr. I guess we just didn't expect it to happen this soon, where the hadith tell us that the people will be filtered. They will be put through a sieve, and only the pure ones will come through. But when those pure ones come through, again, they will be sieved. until only a few remain. And then they will be filtered and sieved again until only the best of the best of the best will be left. Dear brothers and sisters, we are seeing this, we're witnessing this. And I want you to just take a moment now, think about it. Think about the people in your own house. Then think about your extended family members. Then think about the community. Then think about the world at large. Do you not see that people's realities are coming out? Do you not see that the hardships and the tests that we are being faced by in the world today are actually sieving the people and pushing certain people in a certain direction and others in another direction? Do you not see that some people come out with cries of despair in these times? And sometimes we feel bad for them, and we should feel bad for them, and we should feel bad for ourselves sometimes as well. It is difficult, some of the things that we're facing. We are seeing deaths. We are seeing destruction. We are seeing a lot of poverty. Yes, but at the same time, take a step back, look at this objectively, understand that there is a struggle between good and evil taking place, understand that the Taghut is pulling people in a certain direction and that the followers of Wilayah are pulling in a different direction. Understand what we are being faced with and what we're witnessing today. Okay, so in short, this is what Surah Fajr talks about. It talks about the mentality of people. The winds of change push them this way and that way. They're not loyal or stable. And the magnets of the Taghut or the Wilayah can pull them potentially in either direction. Then the surah ends with saying, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. It says, O self-assured soul, O soul that is at rest, return to your Lord. You are pleased with him and he is pleased with you. And if you look at the tafsirs, they say that this whole surah is actually about the struggle of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. If you go back to the beginning, what does it say? Wal Fajr, wal layalin ashr. It says, I swear by the Fajr, by the daybreak, by the dawn, and by the 10 nights. Some of the Mufassirin have said that these refer to the 10 nights of Muharram. Some have said that, although others have refuted that, but that concept and that idea does exist. And it would make sense. But the idea that I'd like to push now is that, look, this is what Allah is talking about. And if you really read it with your heart, you'll see that Allah is, it's astaghfirullah, it's almost as though Allah is complaining. It's almost as though he's saying, look, have you not seen how we dealt with Fir'aun? We destroyed all of these great tyrants. Why are you thinking that there's something great? We are in control. We will dispose of them. They're only there to test you. And then he complains about human beings. Look at this human being. When something good happens to him, when I do something good to him, he gets boastful. When I take away some of his blessings, he changes his side immediately. He can't be steadfast. And then he revels. Yes, he revels. And he says, how much do I love this follower of Wilayah? How much do I love this Hussein? How much do I love this Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who is radi. He is absolutely content with whatever befalls him. And he is content with me and I am content with him. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, don't settle with being a good person. Don't be good. You talk to anybody in the streets, every other person is a good person. That's not what we're looking for. No, you need to be more than good. You need to be radi with the command of Allah. You need to be absolutely so loyal that no matter what happens, you won't budge from your place. You need to be firmer than a mountain. You need to be that which Imam Khamenei tells us you have to become, such that the enemy, i.e. the Taghut, becomes na umid of you. meaning that he becomes absolutely despairing of you. The Taghut, whoever the Taghut is, whether we're talking about America or Britain or the Zionists, whoever they are, and in whichever time we're living in, they get to a point where they say, there is no point in trying to pull this person with our magnets and trying to bribe this person or trying to threaten this person. This person is not going to budge. They become completely despairing of you. We have to get to that point in order to gain the ridaya, the contentment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to become something beyond good and evil. Don't settle for less. Be outstanding. Now, jinns. Jinns. I have to expand on this idea now. Where do the jinns play into this entire thing? One of the things that put a kind of a light bulb went up on in my head was a few months back when Imam Khamenei actually talked about the role of jinns. Okay, so there's a verse in the Quran and it says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا. And so it is that we have established for every Nabi, every messenger, an enemy. شَيَاطِينَ مِنَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ. They are shayateen, they are demons, so to speak. Shayateen, everybody understands shayateen. They are shayateen from among the humans and the jinns. يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. They inspire one another. Okay, and Imam Khamenei expands on this and he says that, look, the jinns and the humans, they're helping each other, the evil ones from among the humans, the Taghut, in other words. Now, the reason I want to point this out is because Imam Khamenei, if you look at his speeches and look at what he generally says, he very, very rarely talks about anything to do with demons or jinns. Okay, we have a habit of reading the speeches, and again, I would emphasize to my dear youths, dear brothers and sisters, and also the elders, get connected to the words of the leader. Form groups where you start to discuss the words of the leader on a weekly basis. And I wouldn't be telling you this if this was not something that we do ourselves here. We have to be connected because he keeps you in sync with what is going on. And times are only going to get more confusing as we see the days passing. We need to be connected to him. He doesn't talk about jinns generally, but here at the onset of this pandemic that we see unraveling all around us, he talks about this concept. He recites the verse and he says that they are helping each other. And he also says that, look, oftentimes we make the mistake of focusing too much on what we see. We need to start looking also at that which is in the ghaib, that which we can't see. Dear brothers and sisters, there are elements at work in the world today which are influencing our minds even while we are in our homes. And it's not just the media, it is the shayateen of the jinns. Okay, so I wanted to open this up a little bit and talk about this idea. And here, with your permission, I'd like to present a theory. And this theory, what I'm hoping to accomplish through it is for us to understand that there is a practical, scientific, rational reason for why the jinns truly do affect us. Okay, and I want us to discuss this in a mature fashion, because often when it comes to the jinns, it becomes something very, very fantastical, and people get excited and scared. Let's not get scared. Okay, I remember in my university days, I was studying English literature. One of the subjects that we expanded on is the idea of the uncanny, the idea that which humans don't know or understand, but have a feeling about, truly scares them. It gets under their skin. It makes them afraid of the dark. It makes them look over their shoulders even when there's nothing behind them. okay? And this is what the uncanny is. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that, look, that which mankind doesn't understand, that which he is ignorant of, he is an enemy to that thing, okay? So let's try to expand on this theory in order for us to understand the practical reality of the jinns, okay? And remember, please do take this with a pinch of salt, but I'm just using this as a tool for us to perhaps understand a little bit more about the reality of the jinns, okay? Human beings and jinns, first of all, they live on earth together, okay? Jinns are right here with us. They are in our rooms with us, and sometimes they're not in our rooms, sometimes they're outside, okay? And just like the human beings, jinns think they are good and they are evil, okay? So there are good jinns and there are bad jinns. There are Shia jinns, there are Muslim jinns, and there are also kafir jinns. And the kafir jinns, among them, there are some of the worst kinds of demons and spirits, okay? Now, when it comes to human beings, what are we? What is our core kind of, what are we made out of? We're made out of cells. That's pretty much our fabric. We're created out of cells. Now, if you isolate any one of these cells, it's skin cells or blood cells. We're lots and lots of different cells which come together and form a human being, okay? Brain cells, okay? If you isolate any one of these cells, look at it under a microscope, you'll see that the cell has a life of its own. You look at the cell. It's got its own nucleus. It's got its own brain. It thinks and it carries out its actions by itself. It's alive. Every speck of us, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, is technically alive. Okay. Now, what if the jinn, and as well as this physical body, we have a spirit, we have a soul. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, the Quran tells us, they ask you about the soul. Tell them it is nothing but Amr Rabbi. It is nothing but the command of Allah. I don't want to go into the discussion of what the ruh is, because let's just leave it at the idea that the ruh is just the command of Allah. So human beings are both physical and spiritual. What if jinns are pretty much the same? Okay, jinns are spirits, okay? They have the soul part of them, just like we have the soul part of them. They can sometimes physically manifest, though. How? What if the cells of the jinns are, for example, bacteria, and for example, viruses, okay? The same way that you can isolate the human cell, you can also isolate a bacteria. You can also isolate a virus. You look at it under a microscope. These tiny little things, they also have minds of their own. They're carrying out a function of their own accord, okay? That's what they are. Sometimes what happens is the spirit of the jinn takes control of numerous cells, bacteria, viruses, or whatever. It takes control of them, and through the control of those, it can physically manifest. Yes. You know, when people told you, oh, don't worry, jinns can't harm you and stuff. No, they can. We need to understand that jinns can do those things. They can scratch, they can bite, and they can whisper. And we're going to come to talk about the whispering in a moment, but they can, okay? And oftentimes we don't discuss these things because it can be terrifying for people to imagine or think of. No, they can. They can push you. They can touch you. They can do all sorts of things, okay? And so the idea is that, look, what if it is bacteria? What if it is najasa, through which they are able to physically manifest, right? And this would explain why Islam has placed so much emphasis on tahara, on spiritual purity. on why it says that you need to wash your clothes a certain number of times, why you need to be spiritually pure, why you need to wash yourself when you go to the bathroom, why you need to clean places. This may be why they have always told us that jinns hang around in places which are dirty, like toilets, like abandoned warehouses, like haunted houses, like places where there are corpses and dead animals and places of that nature. It's because the jinns are utilizing the bacteria that exists, the rotting that exists over there in order to physically manifest. The spirit of the jinn is not like ours. Our spirit is connected to the body to such an extent that if it separates, we die. The jinn is not like that. They are free, so to speak, to travel great distances because they can just move just like that, just like in the blinking of an eye, they can get from one place to another because they're spirits, they're freed of a physical body. But they can sometimes physically manifest. And this is why a jinn can appear in one country and then at the same time, it will just suddenly disappear from there and it will appear in a different country. As long as it has the materials that it needs to manifest, it can manifest. Now go to what the Satanists say. If you study anything about the Satanists, and yes, there is a reality behind them. There's a reality behind the Illuminati. There's a reality behind the Freemasons. There is a reason far deeper than just socio-political reasons for why Imam Khomeini referred to America as Shaytan-e-Buzurg. It is the great Satan. The head of Satanism is there. And you just need to go and look at it for yourself. You need to research it for yourself. Sometimes only seeing the images and the pictures and the interviews will open your eyes to these realities. But look, if you look and research into the Satanists, you'll see very common themes repeated. And you'll find some of them echoed throughout Hollywood, where they say, human sacrifices or sacrificing chickens or playing with blood and najis things. All of these things, why do they do that? Now, some people will assume that, it's just because they're just satanic. They just want to do nasty things. No, there is a physical reality behind it. They are able to summon shayateen through such actions. Maybe. Right? We have to come to some sort of understanding of the fact that these things do exist and they do help each other. The evil ones, the Taghut and the evil jinns, they are helping each other. How? It is through such things. Okay, and I know that this might be a little bit much for people to bear, but we have to explore these things and understand them as well. And this also may be why they say that whenever there is an encounter, if you look at some of the horror stories that exist online, and if you talk to people, actually, often it will be the elders in the community. Talk to your grandparents, see if you can find. I mean, you probably already have because it's always fascinating, and you want to hear these ghost stories, so to speak. No, you find out that look, something always happens whenever they encounter a jinn. It's often accompanied by a foul smell. Go online, you'll see they refer to it as the smell of sulfur. What does sulfur really smell like? It smells like feces. It smells like, najasa. Why is it accompanied by that? Perhaps this is the reason. They exist, they're real. There was a mujtahid, a great marja in Qom, and the jinns came to him because the jinns often do come to scholars to ask them. And there is also a story, for example, hadith, actually, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he was visited by a snake, or at least it looked like a snake, and it said something to him. He replied to it, and then it left, and the companions asked, what was that? And he said it was one of the heads of the snake, of the heads of the jinns. It was one of their scholars. He was coming to ask me a question. Similarly, a similar thing happens today, where one of the great marjas was approached by one of the representatives of the jinn, and he asked him, can you ask your muqallideen to leave more meat on the bones when they throw them in the garbage? Why did he get asked to do this? Because we have a hadith to say that the food of the jinns is the meat that is left on the bones. The meat that is left on the bones. And this is why it's actually recommended that you leave a little bit more. You don't completely clean the bone because, hey, they need to eat, don't they? And that's halal for them to eat. Sometimes when they don't get that halal food, they come nibbling on something else, okay? And this is why you'll see, again, a theme which is repeated often in Hollywood and horror stories is, we need to sacrifice a human so that these demons won't harm us, or this monster in the woods won't harm us. And we might think, oh, no, that's just completely imagination and it's just a story to scare children. Hold on a moment. There is a reality behind it. Now, we also have to understand that the jinns are jealous of us. Generally speaking, the jinns are jealous of us because while the human spirit is connected directly to this body and it's difficult to disconnect from it, and they are free, they can't reach where we can reach. Okay, you'll notice that even the scholars, the great scholars of the jinns, they have to come to our prophets, our imams, and our marjas in order to understand the deen itself. Why? It's because the human spirit has something special within it. It has a greater potential. And every time we sleep, in fact, our soul ascends to a place where the jinns can only dream of reaching. And you'll notice that in the Quran, it says that sometimes the shayateen attempt to reach that place, but there comes following them a burning ball of fire, and it stops them from reaching that place. There's a barrier of fire, okay? So the human soul actually has a huge amount of potential, and this would actually further elaborate for us and explain why they're actually jealous of us. Now, why have I expanded on this and potentially freaked out a lot of people, which I'm really sorry if I did. I didn't really intend to scare people. Why am I elaborating on this? Because two reasons. Number one, it is a reality and we need to face that reality. The way that the enemies, especially the Taghut, is moving, it seems like they have something up their sleeves and it has something to do with the jinns. And unless we come to terms with the Islamic reality of the jinns and accept it and realize that it is a reality, we will be deceived by them. And the second reason is I want us to understand that they truly are whispering to us. Every one of us, they are whispering to us, dear brothers and sisters. Sometimes what you'll see is people are behaving sporadically. They are doing very strange things which are not expected of a certain person to do those things, and yet they're doing them. Why? The shaitan have definitely affected them. And I want us to come to the terms with this. The Quran itself tells us, يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. Shaitan whispers into the hearts of men from among the jinn and the men. Okay. Now, when I was a kid, my parents told me that, look, if you ever feel like doing something naughty, the shaitan has told you to do that. So just say, Lanat hai shaitan pe, and, don't do that thing. So when I was really, really young, and I'm talking about 5, 6, 7, I don't know, whenever I wanted to do something naughty, like, I don't know, break a window or something, I would say, Lanat hai shaitan pe, and then I wouldn't do it. As I grew older, I started to think, no, it's not shaitan, it's me. It's my nafs. Shaitan isn't whispering to me. It's me that's telling me to do these things. And what happened is I lost sight of a desperate reality which could potentially change our lives. It might seem like the simplest thing in the world, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. It might seem like the simplest thing. And because it's so simple, the mind rejects it. We just say, no, it can't be that simple. No. What if it really is that simple? They're whispering. They are whispering to us. And it might, and I want us for a moment to just humor the idea that it is a physical whisper. Mm-hmm. A physical whisper. And if you go to lots of schizophrenic maniacs. You go to all of them say something very similar. I'm hearing voices in my head. Modern psychology has actually done away with the idea that there could be any sort of jinn or, anything to do with that. And so they say that these are just internalized thoughts, or they give it some sort of other explanation. But hold on a moment. What if they really are hearing voices? There is a woman, there was a case study who a friend of mine told me about, a woman who murdered her own children. She killed them. When she was asked, why did you kill your own children? She said, because voices told me that if I don't kill them, they won't go to heaven. Again, I'm not saying this to worry people, to scare people. We have to understand that many of the thoughts that we get are our own original thoughts. Sometimes they don't belong to us. They're coming from some sort of external force. They're coming from some alien place. They're not coming from us. We need to realize this. And generally speaking, these are generally despairing thoughts. Thoughts that make you feel like upset all the time. Thoughts that make you feel like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if your house falls down? And you'll notice that there are certain people who, they have iman, they believe in Allah, but they're always worried. They're always concerned. They're always getting scared. They're always upset. They're always, quote unquote, depressed, because I know that there is a clinical reason for depression as well. And I don't want to, completely negate that. No, but sometimes it's something else. There is a constant bickering that is going on in our minds. And because we have told ourselves that this is just me and my thoughts, we've failed in actually being able to combat the shayateen who are constantly whispering to us. They're telling us to do things. And just for a moment, I want us to just think about it. If you ever in the future get a thought which is telling you and persuading you to do something bad, just stop for one moment and try to think about whether this thought is actually yours or if it belongs to something else. And you'll notice that it's coming from this part of your brain. It's almost as though there is a shaitan on your shoulder whispering to you. We have to recognize that this is a reality, that the shayateen are a reality. Some of your thoughts and ideas are not your thoughts and ideas. And these things exist. And they're whispering to our youths, they're whispering to our family members, they're whispering to everybody out there, from among the jinn and from among the men. Now, just to tie this up, because we have little over 4 or 5 minutes left. How does all of this discussion tie together? We have to understand that, number one, good and evil is a reality, and you have a role to play in that. Number two, you have to understand that 1% of the world is the Taghut. The other percent of the world is the followers of Wilayah, and everybody else is just being pulled this way and that way. And we have to understand that the shayateen, the jinns, have a tremendous role to play in all of this. Denying them, ignoring them, is going to be to the benefit of the enemy, to the benefit of the Taghut. The biggest trick, they say, that the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he does not exist. And now, just a few moments I'd like to take to remember the one who stood for the cause of Wilayah, despite everything being against her. The one who went door to door, knocking and asking people to support the cause of Wilayah. But these were only insan. These were only mere human beings. And they were afraid of all the potential harms that could befall them. And because of that fear, they failed to help the cause of Wilayah when it needed them. Bad things happen when the good do nothing. That's the reality of the world that we live in. And today I'd like to focus, I'd just like to say a few words about Imam Ali alayhi salam, our Mawla Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. When Imam Ali was asked by the Messenger of Allah, how do you find Fatima? Ali said, she is the best of partners in serving Allah. After Fatima was Shaheed, he said she was like a rose nipped at the bud. She left, but her fragrance has remained in my heart. Oh Ali, how difficult must this have been for you? For surely they say that when a person's iman increases, when a man's faith increases, his ghira also increases. The more his faith increases, the more he wishes to defend his women. The more he wants to defend his daughters, the more he wishes to defend his wives. Look at this test that Ali has to now face. Dear mourners, let us think now, especially I say to the dear brothers out there, if someone speaks harshly to our wives, if someone hurts our wives, imagine if someone were to attack our wives and we were not able to defend her. This is the state in which Ali, our Mawla, now finds himself in. And let me remind you who this Ali is. He is the champion of Badr. This is the hero of Khaybar. This is Asadullah. This is the lion of Allah. This is the man who was not afraid of anyone in the battlefield. And now here he is, absolutely rendered helpless. And he has to remember the words of Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, who said, Ali, you have been patient and steadfast. But what will happen to you after I have passed away will be far, far more difficult for you. Oh Ali, you will see that they will come to attack your house and the house of your Fatima. You will see them bring fire and the burning of your door, and the door of Fatima will reflect in the memories yet to be forged of the burning tents of Karbala. Oh Ali, you must be patient now, for you will see your wife. This is Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen. You will see her miscarry her unborn child, but you must be patient. These are the days of Fatima. They say that after the incident, Fatima shows courage, she shows patience and does not complain of her pains to Ali. She did not complain to him. And when Ali was burying her in a hidden place, he looked up to the heavens and screamed. And when he was asked, oh Ali, why did you scream at that moment? He said, because at that moment I realized that the ribs of Fatima had been broken. They say that after she was buried in a hidden place, they came to him and threatened to dig up the body of Fatimiyyah. And at this point, Ali starts to foam at the mouth. And one of the companions is sat there and he tells the others, leave. For surely the Prophet said that if the mouth of Ali begins to foam, then he will be very dangerous for you. So go from here. Oh Ali, now you have no one left to complain to. Oh Ali, now you have no one left to share your pains with. Oh Ali, the rest of your days on earth, you will be crying to the well and complaining to Allah of your loneliness. Oh Ali. Oh Fatima, I ask us all to raise our hands in prayer. Oh Allah, we ask you in the name of the Ahlul Bayt, help us to understand our place in this confusing world. Oh Allah, help us not be like those who refuse to help the cause of Wilayah when Fatima was knocking on their doors. Oh Allah, help us to abandon every fear that we have inside us except of you. Oh Allah, help us to recognize the struggle between good and evil and play an active role in it. Oh Allah, help us to not be influenced by the slinking shaitan when he whispers into our hearts. Oh Allah, help us to not be afraid but to face the evil jinns and the evil men with courage. Oh Allah, bestow upon us such iman that we become stronger than the mountains. Oh Allah, help us to serve the cause of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah Sharif. Allahumma كن لوليك الحواتك عليه وعلى ساعة وليا وحافظا قائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتأه فيها طويلا ببركة صلوات على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين.
I think there's some kind of mic problem or something.
Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. रन को जाते हुए सर झुकाए हुए शैन रोकर कहा अलविदा 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 आया वक्त सफर बहन आज हम हो रहे हैं जुदा अलविदा 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 शाह भर कर बहन के गले लग गए और दुखिया बहन से ये कहने लगे रो के कहने लगे मेरी मज़लूम प्यासी मुसाफिर बहन तेरा हाफिज़ खुदा अलविदा 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 जिससे डरती थी तुम वो घड़ी आ गई देखो चारों तरफ तीरगी जा गई तीरगी जा गई
دشت پور حال میں شام ہونے کو ہے لو مسافر چلا الوداع 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 لے کے بالی سکینہ کو آغوش میں ننھے ننھے سے ہاتھوں کے بوسے لیے ہائے بوسے لیے شان حسرت سے بیٹی کو تکتے ہوئے آ بھر کر کہا الوداع 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 یہ جو بیمار بیٹے سے آقا میرا اب نہ آئے گا بیٹا یہ بابا تیرا بیٹا بابا تیرا موت کی آہٹیں تیز ہونے کو ہے آ رہی ہے صدا الوداع 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 آئے خیمے سے باہر جو مولا میرا بھائی بیٹا بھتیجا کوئی بھی نہ تھا ہائے کوئی بھی نہ تھا ایک حسرت سے چاروں طرف دیکھ کر شاہ نے خود ہی کہا الوداع 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 جب طرف کر کہا میرے شیروں اٹھو آؤ زینب کی بائی کو رخصت کرو ہائے رخصت کرو ایک ایک لاش بے سر سے آئی صدا اے شہ کربلا الوداع 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 رن کو جاتے ہوئے سر جھکائے ہوئے شہ نے رو کر کہا الوداع 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 اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی محمد
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Thank you everyone for attending, especially our reciters, Brother Muhammad Kumail Rizvi, Brother Jafar Jafri, Brother Bakr Jafri, Brother Khurshid Abbas, and Brother Arslan Bhai. And a very special thanks to our esteemed Sheikh. The topic of tomorrow's speech is Happiness is a Journey, Surah Duha. We hope to see you tomorrow at the same time. And until then, inshallah, take care.